Well, we offer dual language immersion and a 50-50 model. We have Mandarin, science, and math taught in Chinese. We also have some of our related arts. For example, our students for one of their PE classes take a class weekly that we call Chinese Dance and Movement. Another related arts class that some of our students take is Chinese history for one of their classes. And then of course they have art and music and PE and the traditional classes as well. Computer, library time.
7 years ago, I had the opportunity to travel with a delegation of administrators from across the United States on a delegation sponsored by the College Board to take us to China to teach American educators or expose American educators to what was going on in China's educational system and to help us have a better understanding of why it was important that we begin to bring more Chinese language programs to the United States.
The program that we have is, like I said, the first in South Carolina. And we are studying others in the United States. There really aren't that many in the United States to study. We have found a challenge in building our media collection so that we have a large selection of Chinese books for our students. And as they get older, we expect the demand for that will grow. We've also become members of the Utah Consortium, and we've been working with other schools in the United States on lesson plan development, pacing, those standards that we're looking for proficiency, and how to assess proficiency. So that's very helpful for our teachers who are sometimes, they may have taught in China for a number of years, but they're just coming into the United States system. And so having that network is very helpful.
I was invited to a meeting at the State Department here in Georgia where our state superintendent was offering not scholarships, but grants to schools who were willing to begin a dual immersion program. Dual immersion was sort of new to me. I wasn't as familiar with that as one of the foreign language in elementary school kind of programs. And I listened to the presentation by the consultant that ran it, and I was very intrigued by what was being said about the research pertaining to dual immersion as opposed to a pull-out type foreign language resource program. And there were several administrators from Georgia there, but I think I may have been the only one interested in beginning a Chinese program. Some of the other foreign languages were being sought more so. Well, I came and brought that information back to our board. I surveyed our community. I did a board presentation on why I thought it would be a good, logical next step for us at Dutchtown, where we already had an interest in Chinese language.
Challenges are being on the East Coast. Our population of teachers who are fluent in Mandarin is not as I guess readily available as it might be on the West Coast. So we have partnered with the University of South Carolina and the Confucius Institute and the South Carolina State Department of Education to bring teachers from China to teach in our classes. We also recruit across the United States. So I would say the challenge is finding the highly qualified teachers in the area of Mandarin.
It's important that we begin to work more with the institutions of higher learning who are preparing their students to come out and become teachers. We need to work with them to give them a better understanding of why having that early childhood certification is important in addition to being fluent in the Mandarin language. It's kind of difficult to have a teacher come into an elementary school to be a dual language instructor without having the early childhood certification, because at that point they're not considered highly qualified to teach in an elementary school, and their knowledge of the content and the best practices in teaching elementary students might not be as great as a teacher who's coming out with early childhood if they're only coming in with the Chinese language portion.
It's amazing because I have been studying the language now for almost 3 years, and my tones are not very good. I have that deep Southern accent, and it's really hard for me to retain from time to time. But with our 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds, when they start, it's amazing to me how within just a few weeks they're responding to everything the teacher says in Chinese. They're singing songs in Chinese. They just absorb it so quickly. And their tones are very good. We have many visitors who come to see us from China or who are Chinese in the United States, and they're always amazed by the tones of our students. The other piece is that when the students begin writing in Chinese, stroke order is very important. And we oftentimes have visitors from China who will look at our students' writing and comment that their stroke order is excellent. So, what I find is that the students pick it up very quickly. Also, another thing that I think having this emphasis does is it makes this for a very learning-focused environment. It is cool to learn, and it is cool to be smart. And so the students sort of push each other, not only in Chinese, but in their science and in their English and in other areas.
We were very fortunate that our community really bought into the idea of having a Chinese dual immersion program at our school, as opposed to some of the more popular languages that are taught in secondary schools and sometimes in elementary schools. We did a lot of parent training to let them know just why Chinese was the language to consider. We did a lot of outreach with our community and with our community businesses to give them a better perspective of just where we were in terms of preparing our students for, or where we would be in terms of preparing our students for the global economy and being marketable upon graduation if they were to know Chinese language as opposed to some of the others. Not that those are not important either, but it is important to recognize that Chinese is the #1 spoken foreign language in the world, and what a competitive edge to give our students if we're able to provide them with an opportunity to be even more marketable than perhaps their peer applying for another job.